GDP what it is, except I'll show you how you can. But I could ask my buddy Bing. So I have Bing up here. I haven't figured out how to use Bing without going to Edge. So I go to my Edge browser, and that's how I bring up my Bing bot. And I'll see if I can show you what happened though. See, here's the problem. Well, here's the article. Let's start like this. I just want to show you guys how to use this stuff. So here's the article, and I open it in a new window. And it says this, but then it stops and says, keep reading here. So I went to the article and I started reading it, and I was like, oh, this is long, and the webinar was about to start. So I said, so I copied this mess. See how long this URL is? So I copied this mess and I told Bing, so now we get to the part where I said to Bing, and I said to Bing, please summarize and analyze, blah, 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 right? That's that link. Bing said, I'm sorry, cannot access it. It seems to require a paywall or token. Can you copy and paste the article text or another source? I already know I can't paste the text because it's too long. 2,000, you limit it to 2,000 characters. So then I said, how about this? And that was the previous link here, and that didn't work. All right, so that's a problem. So then I go, so then I looked at the big long link, and I said, well, it must have worked somehow. So I looked at the big long link, and I saw that it says, there's the article title, but that's going to be paywalled. But then it says token, blah, 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 blah. And I already know as a hacker that that dot is all all that it's going to really look at. Everything else is just junk. But what comes before the dot is what matters. So I took what came before the dot and pasted that. And I said in the third or fourth attempt, I said, how about this? And I took that without the dot. And then it finally got in. So, you know, there's the limitation, okay? You have to be able to pay, you have to be able to give it a link that it can access. It can't go behind paywalls. And you're going to have to start learning a little bit about how links work in order to feed it. Most content you can get to. The content you can't get to, though, is the stuff that's going to annoy you, and that's where you have to kind of start learning how to do this. Then it said, here's a summary of the article. Now, I don't want to get into the argument of the whole thing, but once again, you know, there's more evidence, substantially more evidence, leaning towards COVID having started out of the wet market at Wuhan and not the lab. Okay, all that happened over the weekend that got all the conservatives freaking out was the Department of Energy, I want to say, which honestly is not the expert in the situation, but the Department of Energy said they have low confidence that it came from the lab versus coming from the wet market. So in other words, they're leaning towards the lab, but they don't really know because they have low confidence. That's a ridiculous thing for people to start screaming about, but that was all weekend long on TV. Everybody's going, aha, we told you so, it was the lab. Anyway, it's not the lab. Or it doesn't seem to be the lab. You know what freaks me out about this picture? I literally, when I was in Thailand in Christmas of 2020, or the end of 2019, New Year's 2020, right when COVID started, it was I literally was in a market that looked exactly like this, and I was over here in a stall, and we were eating in Thailand. They have like chicken and meatballs and things on a stick, also bugs on a stick. Didn't try those, but they had, you know, chicken and meatballs and things on a stick, and then they had, but the funny thing is you buy those, there's piles and piles of these skewers of different things that you can buy, and they're really cheap. They're like $1 each. But then there are giant bowls of sauces. And the funny thing to me is that everybody buys these sticks for $1 each and then dips them in the sauces and eats them. And it's like a communal bowl of sauces that everybody dips their food into. And it was delicious. But I'm just sitting there thinking like, oh my God, this is like so was like, such a disease spreader. It was crazy. But anyway, so it looks exactly like this. It's always, there was like a train station, and then there was a market, and there was a thing just like that, and this was the exact top. It wasn't China though; it was Thailand. But apparently, these are very common. But this is the most likely origin of COVID, was just a virus that jumped from animals to people. But anyway, so this gives a wonderful analysis. So I mean, I gotta tell you, I mean, it's like I read the article to double check it. No, I don't want you to be up there. All right, anyway, so many studies, blah, 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 it's a report, there's a statement, it's got all the citations. But what's cool about Bing also though, is when it's analyzing something, it tells you, I like this read. The article acknowledges the timing of the first human infection, blah, 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 this one. Then it says, the article is an example of persuasive writing that uses facts, logic, and appeals to authority to support its main claim. It uses rhetorical devices such as contrast, repetition, analogy, rhetorical questions to engage the audience and emphasize its points. Some examples are blah, blah, blah. I love the way it does that. It like analyzes an article and like analyzes the article itself to talk about like what's going on in this article. What is the author trying to do? And I find that really cool. I think it's a great way to read anything, is to think about what the perspective of the author is. Are they trying to be balanced? Are they trying to lean one way or the other? Because all information is nuanced. You have to learn how to read it properly. Is this my Bing window? Yeah, it is. It's my Bing window. Sometimes I forget and close it. But anyway, that's just a really cool thing that you can do. Yeah, in fact, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff when we're analyzing today, because I want to get you guys used to the idea of using these AI so you can do a lot better research. I mean, it's not that hard to do really good research with these things. So, everybody's got to step up their game, I think. Let's see, any questions? See if we have questions before I start. No questions. Okay, cool. Market is sucking. Oh dear, getting worse now that I guess Powell's done now. He wasn't done before I started. I was like, wow, dude's still going. And you got to hand it to Powell, because he gets, these people are asking, they're not even questions. It's like, Chairman Powell, given that the Democrats run what do you call it? A pedophile. Yeah, given that the Democrats run a pedophile ring out of the back of a pizza parlor, how do you feel this is going to affect the price of dough around the country? It's not even like a question. It's like an attack on the other party instead of a question. It's so funny. So the dollar's kind of high, the oil's kind of low, blah, blah, blah. It's like so ridiculous. Anyway, so. And all this is based on what? He said he's going to have to, he basically said the same thing he always says, which is they're data dependent and they're going to see about the situation with the rates. It's no different than anything else that they've said. So now again, whenever you want something current, you're kind of forced to use Bing. Did Powell say anything in today's Q&A session that was markedly different from what he said yesterday? I wish they would use tab. I find that tricky to hit. I do fill in the words very well, but I just whether you hit it or not. So the whole key to the thing, you get 10 questions now, huge improvement. They were at 6. 6 was very annoying. 10 is actually fine. I think 10 is a very good change from Microsoft. So look at this freaking thing. Now, we don't know that it's accurate. Keep that in mind. But it sets us off to check and find out whether or not it's true. And now, see, he's off by a mile. He didn't speak at the Cato Institute yesterday. Today, Powell spoke at a congressional hearing, the Fed's response to the coronavirus. Yesterday, he spoke at the Q&A session of the Cato Institute. That's from 2022. See, he doesn't know what day it is. The main difference between the two sessions of Powell is more hawkish. Signal the Fed may raise rates sooner than faster than. Now, when he says the difference between the two sessions, he's comparing the Cato Institute to today's stuff. And that's, so obviously it's going to be the wrong concept of comparison. He said that inflation is higher and more persistent than anticipated. There's no clear progress. He said the Fed needs to keep rates higher longer to avoid a recession. Powell said yesterday that, again, this is the Cato Institute was 2022 or not, whatever, or 9/8/22. Oh, they don't even have that one right. So you can't trust anything he said. So let's see what he does. Actually, he spoke to the Senate yesterday, which was March 7th. Yes, 7th, 2023, and today he spoke to the House. I'm looking for that comparison. You have to be careful with Bing, because if you back him into a corner, he'll freak out. So you want to just sort of be gentle about correcting him. See, now he's figured it out. Yesterday he testified before the Banking Committee. Today he testified before the House. The main difference between the two sessions today, Powell was more specific and data-driven about the Fed's plans. There you go. That is what was happening. The Fed's plans to raise interest rates and reduce its bond purchases. Powell said today the Fed will decide on the size of its next rate increase based on incoming data, especially on inflation and labor market conditions. He said that the Fed will complete its tapering and bond purchases by March and will not sell any of its holdings. I don't know that that's true. So then, but it's nice that I can now dig in and see what he's talking about. Keeping options open about rates. Okay, the half point we know about because I said that. There's nothing here really that says that. So now that doesn't mean he's wrong. He's really good at extrapolating things, but you can't really take that. You got to be careful when you read things from the AIs, because they do kind of make stuff up. And people say they make stuff up, but I'm actually being a prognosticator myself. I understand how they're extrapolating the concept, but obviously you can't state it like it happened when it's not what happened. Powell said yesterday inflation had been high, but physically they can't taper and be done by March. There's no possible way. Powell said yesterday inflation has been higher and more persistent than expected, and that the Fed may need to raise rates sooner and faster than previously anticipated. He also said the Fed will continue to monitor inflation expectations as financial. The market reaction to Powell's remarks was mixed. Stocks edged higher as investors welcome Powell's data-dependent approach, because it's better than saying I'm going to raise rates no matter what. Bond yields fell slightly on the half-point hike bets. The dollar weakened as lower interest rates made it less attractive relative to other currencies. That's not a thing, so that's wrong. I don't know where he got that from. Oh, so he did get it from an article. He got it from an article that was written yesterday. Makes no sense. Stocks plunged yesterday as investors feared higher borrowing costs, slower growth. Bond yields surged as traders priced in more aggressive tightening. The dollar strengthened sharply as interest rates boosted its appeal relative to other countries. See that's not the dollar weakened and the dollar strengthened. I hope the comparison, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, it's good. Maybe it's not good. I mean, it's good for me because I know what's true and what's not true. And if I think something's iffy, I'm going to check it out, and it gives me a chance to look it up. Like I was listening to Powell's testimony with one ear, so I know when he says something that I recall hearing, I'm like, oh yeah, that is what he said. But you can see the danger here, because the problem is that all search engines, okay, they utilize an algorithm that's looking for a preponderance of evidence, and so do the AI. And this is where it's a weird kind of thing, because so do the AI. So when the AI start hearing a lot of respected people, a lot of people who rank highly, like I'm a high ranked person. When I say, it's different when I say something than if some other blogger says something. You know, it's like I carry more weight because I've been on a lot of TV things. I get interviewed by real magazines, so on and so forth. So the assumption is when I say something, it means something. But there's going to be a lot of people who start relying on this kind of stuff and make misstatements. And your level of confidence in all data is going to start slipping tremendously. There's going to be a huge value to figuring out who is able to deliver real content. But the concept of reality is just going to keep slipping away. It's going to be a war to figure out what actually is true and what's not true. I kind of start thinking like the New York Times is in a position to capitalize on this somehow, because I think that the people who maintain standards and check facts and are on top of stuff are going to win, because people are going to, it's going to be like firewall content or hacker-proof networks. You're going to have to turn to these people who are able to keep you safe. And in this case, it's people who can keep the information safe and not have you read through all the bullshit, because there's just going to be more and more and more of it. I'm already reading so much junk. I read so many articles now in Seeking Alpha, because it's easier to write. Why should I kill myself writing for Seeking Alpha for freaking $50? They pay like $50 an article. Why $50 would I kill myself writing for Seeking Alpha when I can push a button and the machine writes it for me? But you can tell. You can tell when it's written by an algorithm. Now down the road you won't be able to tell, but that's even worse, because there's insidious mistakes in these things. And where do they go? They go to, where do we go? We go to Market News. We go to Live Mint, which is, basically a blog. We go to Finance at Yahoo, which is basically a bunch of bloggers. What are the 6 more? Benzinga, blog, Today Online, Reuters. There's a news source. Finally, Reuters. Yahoo again. I mean, this is kind of crazy, right? And Reuters is it's the same problem with Reuters. They're paying these reporters peanuts to turn in articles, and they're paid based on like, what did you get done? How many did you do today? It's not based on the quality. It's not based on the value of the article. It's based on filling up space. And they, and again, budget cuts, not enough editors, not enough people. There's no reward for quality. There really isn't, and it's a big problem. You're taking an entire industry where quality doesn't really matter. You might say it matters, but do you pay for it? It's like do we go to mostly free sites, or do we go to mostly paid sites? When we're looking for information? I was just telling you how to get past the paywall. I mean, there you go. It's like, and of course you can't subscribe to everything. I mean, my God, my subscription bills on a monthly basis are insane. Because I subscribe to a lot of things, but everybody can't do that. That's crazy. But that's why I'm so keenly aware of like all the bullshit, because I actually can read behind the paywalls. I'm actually looking at like some hard data from serious news sources. like the Financial Times. Good luck trying to copy something from the Financial Times, right? But there you go. The Financial Times, fabulous news source. But if you, God forbid, you ever, quote them, they sue you. So all I can do is sort of digest their information and pass along what I know. So what else do we talk about today? Let's see. So anyway, so Powell's done now and was slipping a little bit further. So he hasn't helped at all, basically, but hasn't hurt much either. It's fine. It's okay. The dollar's 105.6. So we're where we were yesterday. There's been no change, and nothing he said has really mattered. Tom says in Powell's entire testimony, he was only asked 2 or 3 questions where he actually had to repeat any of yesterday's bad news items. He couldn't change his tune, so they just made sure he wasn't driving home the bad news. Yeah, I found, well, this is typical though. I gotta tell you, the House is always nothing but a bunch of morons grandstanding. Well, even Warren yesterday, and I love Liz Warren, but she was just like attacking him on jobs. And there's only 5 minutes. If I understand, well, I don't have to understand anything. That's the funny thing. When I need an answer that's intelligent, I always go back to ChatGPT. When Powell testifies to the Senate, what are the rules and time limits to his Q and A session? Oh, come on. Okay. Each senator has a specific amount of time to ask questions and receives answers from the witness. The amount of time. I'm talking about his semi-annual Okay, each senator on the committee is given a specific amount of time to ask questions of the witness, with the amount of time varying depending on the committee and the witness. Oh, interesting. For Humphrey Hawkins' testimony, okay, the session typically lasts several hours. In addition, the rules of Q&A session may be established by the chair. The rules include the length of time allotted to a senator, the number of rounds of questions, scope of questions may be asked. Overall, the Q&A during Humphrey Hawkins is important. Well, it doesn't really explain it. Okay. Anyway, so it's very short. I would say it's about 5 minutes total for the question and the responses. So in other words, the senator is given maybe 5 minutes to talk to Powell, and whether he answers yes or no, or if he gets into a long speech, that's your time. He tries to keep his answers short, but sometimes they're asking for a longer answer. So anyway, I was not happy that, anyway, the point was, it doesn't lend itself, I'm talking about Warren and the jobs, it doesn't lend itself to a long form response or any sort of educational response that's going to actually, say, well, this is this because of this, blah, blah, blah. And the senators tend to frame things in very yes or no fashion, where they're kind of trying to get him to say something they want him to say so they can then quote it later. It's just such nonsense. It's a complete waste of time. It's good for him to answer questions and so on and so forth, but I mean, there should be a rule that says if you're grandstanding or politicizing, you're out. Like, you're not allowed to ask a question next time or something. I mean, it'd be nice to have some serious questions on these things. Anyway, let's see Bing knows. What were some key exchanges between Powell and the senators yesterday? 3-8, right? Nope, today's 3-7. 3-7/23. That's what I want to see. Isn't that lovely? Now, again, we don't know for sure that this is true, but Powell was grilled by Pat Toomey on whether the bond purchases are still necessarily appropriate. Powell defended the Fed's tapering plan and said it was not a major driver of inflation. Powell was pressed by, why would the tapering plan be a driver of inflation? Powell was pressed by Warren and the Fed regulatory actions contributed to financial stability, such as excessive leverage and risky lending. Powell denied the Fed weakened its oversight and taken steps to address the vulnerabilities. Powell was questioned by Menendez on the impacts of failing to raise the debt ceiling by mid-March. Powell warned that default would have severe consequences for the economy. Powell was asked by Senator Kennedy on how he'd respond if inflation does not come down as expected. Powell said he would be prepared to adjust monetary policy accordingly and does not expect inflation to become entrenched. Now, this is from a guy who said it was transitory almost 2 years ago. So take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, the trick is, I mean, honestly, it's just, you should really practice with these things, because when you want to know something, you're going to appreciate the fact that you practice, because you have to understand how to ask them a question. You have to get good at figuring out what they know and what they don't know and steer them in the right direction. And I forget sometimes, and it really sucks with Bing that it doesn't save your sessions, because you're just starting from fresh all the time. There's no actual good way to save it. It doesn't want you to export the chats, so it doesn't really go for that. It just erases itself and restarts each time. So that means I can't really, I'm not learning. You know, I mean, I could take notes or whatever, but it's just not my style. So I just try to remember. But it's like I don't have those set things, and I probably should, because it would be good if I had a list of good ways to ask questions or something like that. Like, so when I get a great response, I should say, oh, that's the way I should ask next time, right? But it's really good for that sort of thing. And we'll talk about research also. Let's get back to where we were here. Okay, so I don't know how many people get that reference from. He was screaming. Anyway, all right. So here's the short-term portfolio. No, wait. Oh, I was gonna say that's not right. Here was the short-term portfolio, and we didn't change it. You know, when we did our last review, we decided that this was plenty of hedges and we're in good shape and everything balances well. And we were right, because it went from 38.88 to 4.099, so a couple $100,000 higher on this little dip. It's only been a 3-point-something% dip. So, you know, it's, people freak out about here, 3.4%. So it's 3.4%. We're 3.4% lower than we were when we did the review, which was Valentine's Day, so February 14th, so 3 weeks. So it's not like it's a huge drop in the market or anything like that. It's irrelevant. And the nice thing about having proper hedges in your portfolio is you don't care. You get to go, oh, that's amusing. You know, like a day like yesterday, we were all like, oh, okay, let's see what happens. You know, because it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect our portfolio. We're balanced out. And that's the best thing to be. And even if it drops 20%, we're still going to be basically balanced out. And we just say, oh, okay, now we can decide. When it's down 20%, then we decide what we want to do about it. Are we going to press our bets on the longs? Are we going to cut the longs and cut the rest and just go back to cash? You know, we have all the time in the world to make the decisions. And that's the key of this thing. And the reason the short-term portfolio has so much cash and is up so much is because every time we've had a dip in the last 3 years, basically, there's been a recovery. We haven't had any times where there's been no recovery. And what is a dip and no recovery? A dip and no recovery is like what happened in 2008 and it lasted for a year and a half, or what happened in 2000 that lasted for many years. You know, the crash of 2000, 2-3 years later, we were still way down. So that's the kind of thing that we're really protecting against. We're not protecting against dipping and coming back. If it comes back, your longs come back. What's the difference? It's like the dip never happened. And as a long-term investor, the only thing we're trying to do is avoid negative years. And we talked about that when we were talking about Buffett last week. It's all about not having the off years. That's what kills you. If you're up, you know, 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, 2%, 5%, it all accumulates, right? But as soon as you have a minus 20%, you've messed up big time. And I did that math last week or the week before, so I'm not going to do it again. But you can gain 10% a year and go 100, 110, 120, 130. Then you have a 20% down year, and 130 loses 26 points. And now you're at 104. So here you are after 4 years, and you're only up 4%, even though you were gaining 10% in the first 3 years. Okay, that's a quick example of it. You don't want that to happen. That's what kills performance in the long term, in a long-term investing strategy, is having those bad years. So that's all this is. The whole point of the long-term portfolio. Well, there's two things. It's like one of those snakes that eats its own tail kind of things. It's a big circle, but it's a good circle. Having the hedges allows us to be more aggressive with our longs. So instead of making 10% a year, we'll make 20% a year, sometimes more than 20% a year. So we're aggressive with our longs because we're not fearing the downside. And also, it locks in our gains so that we keep those 20% and we don't have that negative year. So those two things together become very, very powerful and skyrocket the performance of the portfolio. It's very important to learn how to hedge. Look, UNG got, well, no, see, we're still in good shape here on our UNG, on the second UNG, the first UNG, not so much. And coffee is still performing okay, so that's good. Coinbase, still okay. This is kind of encouraging. Okay, good. We only need to get to 65 on Coinbase. We're at 62. And otherwise, of course, then these are the hedges, the DIA, the SQQ, and the TZA. Those are our hedges. And there's nothing to do. There's no need to adjust them. We didn't adjust them last month because we felt they were fine. And we're not adjusting them now because they're fine, because this is only a little tiny correction. This is not the thing that we're hedging for. The long-term portfolio is probably down about 200,000. The short-term portfolio is up 200,000, even Stevens. Don't care. But the point is, we don't have any pressure. We don't have a need to adjust. We don't need to change anything. We don't need to pull off any positions. We don't need to run and cover stuff. Could we optimize our performance? Yeah, if we call it perfectly and know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow and next week, but we don't know. And if we don't know, we don't do anything. You know, that's really the key to the whole thing. It's like there's no pressure for us to do anything. We can just stick with our strategy. And having that luxury that even when the market's in turmoil, we can stick with our strategy, that's a huge thing. There may come a certain point where we decide we're wrong, where we see things are really falling apart or things are really better than we expected. And then we adjust our strategy. But you know, you got to have some actual evidence of that, not just because, you know, we had a couple of bad weeks. That's not enough to make a decision and change our minds. You know, I had said in November, when we started getting short and cashy, I said, where were we? Nope. Gallery view, gallery view, gallery view. There it is. Gallery view. PX. Oh, come on. Really? You can't, this is where you need AI. It's like, what else would I mean? Anyway, so November, there you go. So in November, we decided that we were not that comfortable at 4,100, and we got more cautious, and then we went down and we didn't do anything, not particularly. And then we went up, we didn't do anything, not particularly, and now we're down again. Okay, and we just believe this is too high. We hope we'll hold around here, but I will not be surprised at all if we go 10% down from 4,000, which is way down here, 3,600. Okay. But we were worried after November. We had earnings. I thought this was an irrational response to earnings. We went to more cash because I didn't see this was justified based on November earnings. I said, well, let's just go to cash until we see the next earnings reports. The next earnings report started coming in around here. We pumped back up to 4,200 again. But my interpretation of the reports was that they weren't that good. And my interpretation of inflation and where Powell stood was that we needed to go to 6%. And nobody believed it. So now he's starting to say it too. Now he's starting to say, this is nowhere near tight enough right now. And so we're back down here, but back down here, this isn't where it ends. This is just the beginning of the realization that the reality of the Fed rates, of the corporate earnings, and so on and so forth, of where inflation is going forward. The war is still on, stuff like that. You know, shipping is better. Let's talk about some good stuff. Shipping is better. We don't have that natural gas crisis we were kind of having. That seems to be working itself out. I do believe that AI will, in the same way that computers did, AI is going to create a massive boost in productivity, but not in one day. You know, I mean, when I remember that because one of the first big stocks I bought out of college was Intel. And I also bought Cray Computers. And I didn't buy Microsoft. I wish I bought Microsoft. Anyway, I remember buying Intel. I remember buying Cray like right after college, because those were two companies I thought would do super well. Now Cray got killed eventually. They're a supercomputer company. Sun, I bought Sun Microsystems. You know, there were, and I also bought Dell, Hewlett Packard, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I was covering both sides for, you know, for investments, figuring that, you know, some of the supercomputer guys would do well and some of the PC guys would do well. Turned out the PC guys did really well. But the others died a slow death, so it wasn't like a big deal. It was just like, well, that's not working out, so we give up on that. But I think that that's where we are now. We're in these early stages. Yeah, in fact, remember like 10 years ago when 3D printers came out and everyone's like, oh my God, that's the future. You're going to be able to print anything you want at home. And you will, but not yet. Right now, we only really can print like single things that have single containers. It's kind of like an inkjet printer with thicker materials. One day, yeah, you'll be able to print a pair of blue jeans on a 3D printer, and like when you want blue jeans, they'll just be printed at your house. When you want a shirt, it'll just come off the printer. But still, if there's, it's good for a T-shirt, but it's not necessarily good for something with buttons. Because what are you gonna do? Sew the buttons on? Or have another machine that sews buttons. It starts to become like you're opening up a manufacturing plant just to have a shirt. Everything's like that. But point being, there are things that enhance productivity, but you can be way, way too early. Because I was out of college in '85, and it wasn't until the '90s when computers really started making a difference. They were there. That Apple commercial with the 1984 Apple commercial was 1984. That's when it was, like the Super Bowl of 1984. And they said, this is why 1980, it was a Macintosh introduction. This is why my 1984 won't be like 1984. And it was amazing. It was mind-blowing, blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, after college, I sold computers for a while. And it was like pulling teeth trying to get companies to move in that direction and embrace it. And it took another 10 years pretty much before enough companies were doing it and using it smartly and utilizing the productivity of PCs when it started making a difference. It made a huge difference in the economy. We had incredible economic expansion all around the world because of the efficiency of the computers. So I am more bullish about the world economy now than I have been in a while, but also I'm aware that it's not going to be immediate. Now, compared to computers, though, there's a difference because I have AI available to me right this minute. And I'm just sitting here with my regular PC on my desk. I don't have to install hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. So this will roll out much faster than PCs did because there's no changes. The PCs you have now will be able to utilize the AI, and it's going to be just a matter of people developing software as a service that incorporates AI and different clever apps and so on and so forth that incorporate the AI, but you don't have to worry about it as the boss of the company, the same way that when Word and Excel, when WordPerfect and it wasn't Excel, what the hell was the thing? There was that Lotus. When WordPerfect and Lotus and things like that were out, and then all of a sudden other companies started developing, Microsoft was like Word and Excel, and there were other companies with spreadsheets and databases and blah, blah, blah. And then it was really just a matter of picking the ones that you liked. But the big thought behind putting a database together and putting a spreadsheet together was already done. And so it wasn't the company's problem how to do it. How to implement it, yeah, you need software people and so on and so forth. There'll be a boom in those kind of companies implementing AI, but the AI is there, the cloud is there, the infrastructure is there. You don't have to, as a company, do that. Okay, but as a company, I can say, what are the best selling donuts at Dunkin'? What are the 10 best selling donuts at Dunkin'? Okay. Does it vary by region? Now, by the way, this is me knowing how to talk to him, okay? Because what I do is I get him to think I get him to think along a certain path. Because he's learning from the conversation as it goes on. So I ask the questions in an order to get him thinking of something. Okay, so I say, okay, so I live in Delray Beach, Florida, and I want to create 5 new donut flavors that will have great appeal in this region. What can you suggest? He always like disparages himself before he starts. Then he comes up with some cool stuff. Oh, these are not bad. Key lime pie, key lime flavored donut. Obviously a great idea, right? Because I'm in Florida. Everybody likes a key lime pie down here. Not me, but key lime flavored donut with graham cracker crumbles on. Wow, he's really thought about this. Orange creamsicle, an orange flavored donut with creamy vanilla glaze inspired by the classic frozen treat. Guava and cream cheese. A guava flavored donut. I can't even imagine. Filled with sweet cream cheese filling. Oh, it's popular in Cuban cuisine. Very good. Okay, I would give that a shot then. Pecan pie, pecan flavored donut with caramel glaze and pecan pieces on top, inspired by the southern dessert. Banana Foster, banana flavored donut with caramel and rum glaze. Holy shit, I want one of those. Okay, anyway. This is what I mean by productivity, right? I open up my donut shop and I'm opening it up and I've got 5 flavors. I get 10 flavors. He'll give me 20 flavors. He'll come up with different shit every time. This is amazing, right? I mean, think about this. I've now come up with a whole concept. I haven't come up with shit, but Warren has come up with an entire concept for how to like make some cool new flavors for a donut shop. And they are, you know, they're you know, I mean, I would certainly try to make all 5 and see how people like it. But you know, you can use this and come up with exotic flavors for donuts. It works in anything though. That was just off the top of my head. In 30 seconds, we came up. We have a donut business. That's what productivity is all about. Now, if you give him access to if you have now you can license the AI and do better than what these do. But I can license the AI and have him learn my database. If I'm like Ford and I say, here's all my data on cars, here's all the stuff we do, here's our suppliers, here's everything that we have, everything that's going on in the company and so on and so forth. You don't know how it's going to be useful to him, but he does. That's the point. These things read everything and figure it out. And they come up with ways to put it together. And they're ways that you don't necessarily think about because an AI is like an alien. It's like, it's not an intelligence like you or me. It's not really technically intelligence at all. But to the extent that it obviously is as intelligent as, you know, am I going to hire a guy and have him come into my Dunkin' Donuts shop and say to him, can come up with some new flavors? Do you think anybody who comes in is going to do that? Those are freaking great ideas. So to me, it's a guy. You know, to me, it's a guy who's thinking. Whether, you know, you can argue the language model isn't really thinking or whatever. What it does is it puts together information and figures out based on your question what the best combination of information is going to look like. But then what do you do when you think anyway? So not arguing whether or not it's alive or not, or whether it's intelligent or not, but it's easier for me to think of it as a thinking thing. But to me, it's like an alien because there's certain limitations. He can't taste, he can't feel, he can't touch. He can only go by what seems to be popular, what flavors. So when I tell him this, he says, well, here are the kind of flavors that people in the Southwest seem to like. And he's even given me his logic for why he's telling me this. Like that guava and cream cheese, I would have been like, what are you, insane? But then he's like, well, you know, Cubans like that stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't know. It seems like really wacky to me, but let's give it a try and give it to some Cuban people and see what they say. Who the hell would have thought of that? You can ask him how to market your business. You can ask him how to, like I said with Ford, they can give him all the inputs and he knows all the costs and all the combinations that they use to make cars and so on and so forth. And then they say to him, how can we make a better selling car? What do you think? And this is productivity, because when you can spit out an answer and say, you know what, your Mustang does really well and this does really well, but you don't have this. It's like, what's missing in the market? What am I not putting together? And he's going to go through all your stuff in your company and say, you know what, you're not doing this. Why don't you try that? And because he has no human frame of reference, he's fearless. He doesn't think that, he's not worried about his job. He's not worried about whether you like the idea or not. He's just like saying, this is what I see working. And here's something else. They just had AI's model parts for aircraft. I don't know if it was Boeing, but somebody had a model like aircraft parts, and the aircraft parts it came up with were crazy. They were not the same kind of design at all that they currently use, but they were lighter and more efficient than what we're using now. The robot just took the material and said, it's, they're like the blade of a propeller or whatever. It said, no, let's, instead of the blade being a flat thing, it's going to be what do you even call it? Like a helix. So each blade is like a helix, and it's not solid. It's got holes in it. And who the hell would put holes in a propeller? That seems crazy. But they did an airflow study. They looked at it and said, holy crap, this thing could work. We could actually increase our lift efficiency or something. And it's like, wow. Because no human thinks like that. So, he's taking what's known and then looking at it from like a very different angle, or millions of different angles, really. That's what they do. I mean, they just look at all the things they can think of. He probably thought of like 5,000 flavors of donuts and picked the 5 that make the most sense when I asked him. They don't think of one thing. They don't come up with one. They don't have to stop. Like, these are just a few ideas, or many possible flavor combinations can be appealing. It might be helpful to survey customers, get a better idea. I see, now I can do that. He's telling me, why don't you give me some more information? Get me more information and I'll give you better answers. That's what he's basically saying. He's even telling me how to help him give me better information. So if you're running a restaurant, and again, if you're running a restaurant and you say, here is my cost of all my ingredients, what can I make? What can I make that's going to have higher food margins? Here's the cost of all my ingredients and how long it takes me to cook everything. And here's my capacity, and here's how many chefs I have, and here's how many ovens I have, and here's how many burners I have. The more you tell him, the more he's going to be able to help you, right? So I would suggest redoing your menu as such. I would suggest using these items. I would suggest this. And it'll tell you how to write your menu. It'll tell you what to say on the menu. It'll tell you how to price your menu. That is all efficiency. That's all productivity. Because you know how that process goes. Most of you guys have run some kind of business or been a manager or something, been more than a worker at a business where you've had to deal with this stuff. And the ability to have this at your fingertips is going to make everybody more productive, but not tomorrow, not next quarter. But what's going to happen is this year, the early adopters of AI are going to kick the crap out of the competition, and people are going to see it. And then more and more people will want AI, and then people will start incorporating it, and people start taking classes. And again, that's what I'm trying to do with you guys. That's why, and I'm sorry, I don't want to bore anybody, but this is the most important thing that's happened since the PC. This is going to be a massive change in the way we do things in the world. Because now, the same way that the PC gave you the ability to store data and coordinate data to be able to take word processing right there, right? First thing we did with the computer, word processing. before there were PCs, there were the IBM typewriters that were starting to have memory, right? That was like an early PC. There was an IBM typewriter that would remember the whole paragraph you just wrote or the whole page, and you would write out these, people would write out a whole page in the little teeny screen of the typewriter, and then you could review it before you hit print, and then it would print the page. That was an early word processor, and it would autocorrect and spell and do things like that. It had one function. It was a word processor. When I first had an Apple IIc. My first computer was an Apple IIc, and we had at the same time we had the IBM, the Charlie Chaplin IBM thing, whatever it was called. Is it a PS1? I want to say. I think so. Anyway, so we had IBM's first computer at home, but when I went to college, I took an Apple IIc with me. It was $3,000, including the printer, and I used it 99% for just basically your word processor. But I could not possibly think of how I could have lived without it. But also because I had that thing, I would rip out work. I mean, I just would like zoom through any assignments and get them typed up and done and finished and printed. And I had time. My friend and I published a humor magazine in the school using that as well. I mean, it was just so powerful. It was just like, it was so powerful compared to what human beings were doing. It was a joke. We could just put out a whole we could put out a whole magazine on this thing. It's crazy. At the time, compared to what you used to have to do to publish something, it was night and day. I wasn't into spreadsheets. I didn't have much use for it, but as soon as I started as soon as I got into the computer company, I started using spreadsheets a lot, and we did sales projections and put all kinds of stuff there. I used to organize everything on HyperCard, which is a program I really missed on the Mac. But these were like the early days. But the programs I found useful were especially with like word processing and stuff like that. Other people, though, of course, CAD was very important. AutoCAD for all the architectural people, and spreadsheets for anybody with accounting was like all over the spreadsheets. These were single-purpose things. You don't know what this is going to be, but look at, holy crap, right? Look at what we can do with this thing. So now let's go back here. All right, so we talked about these positions. I didn't think we got too much here, so I'm not going to worry about it. So let's go to home. And when did we, I think it was the day we did the money talk portfolio. We looked at a whole bunch of other stuff that we could invest in. The webinar last week, no. Phil's posts. Live webinar, millionaire portfolio, that one, I think, because we had some candidates. I think I did more here, but let's take a look at this one first. I seem to remember having a whole bunch of different things we were looking at. So here, once again, when you're in an article, and I like to do it before I read something, because I kind of like to look at what to key off of, especially when I read something very long, it helps me focus. But to a clean thing. Please read this article and comments, and let me know what ideas seem to be the most investable. Wow, that's not what I said at all. Where did he get that from? So the author reviews a portfolio of 11 stock and option trades that have performed well since 2021. The author suggests taking profits on some positions and adjusting others to lock in gains. He mostly, the comments mostly agree with the author's analysis and praise his performance. Some of the ideas that seem most investable, ChatGPT. He made up a symbol. That's so freaky, right? This is a leading company in artificial intelligence, natural language processing. The author calls it trade of the year for 2023 and expects to double or triple in value. He recommends buying 500 shares for 100. What the frick? It's totally made up. That is weird. Intel, dominant chip maker, has been lagging behind its competitors in recent years. The author thinks it is undervalued and strong growth potential. He recommends buying 1,000 shares, 48,000, selling the calls, blah, blah, blah. That's true. Goldman Sachs is a leading investment banker. I did not even talk about Goldman Sachs in this article. That's freaky. Absolutely no mention of Goldman Sachs. Wow. So that's funny. Anyway. So again, you know, and again, that's the scary side of this stuff, is because you can't trust it. It works sometimes, and sometimes it just completely freaks out like this. This makes no sense. He recommends buying 200 shares for $82,000, selling 2 calls for $36,000. I don't think 200 shares of Goldman Sachs are that much money. I'm not going to bother. It lowers the cost and sets a break even if GS. These are just some of the ideas. Are you sure you read the right freaking article? Money Talk Q1 2023. Oh, that is what it is. That is so weird. That's the weirdest one I've ever seen. All right. Anyway, so much for explaining that. But yeah, this is why you got to be super, super concerned about all these things. Here you go. This is where we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, though. So I had asked for ideas. We talked about it. I said, what are some good areas to invest in? And it gave me areas to invest in. And then I said, okay, that makes sense. And then I said, let's talk about data storage companies. What are the top data storage companies? You got Amazon Web, Microsoft, Alphabet, Dell, Western Digital. So what I then do is I take those things and I go back to, I'll go back here and I'll just start saying, I'll look at Amazon and say AMZN, and I'll say, how's Amazon doing? They got much cheaper, but they're still 58 times earnings even down here. But what are they 58 times? They're going to earn, they're now a $1 trillion company. They're going to make this year 14. All right, so that's let me do the math there. That's 958 divided by 14 is 68. So next year, and so it seems to have blended to get, or it's looking at last year. That's what it's doing. It's looking at last year. No, it's not looking at last year. It's somehow blending the forward years. So last year was a bad year for them because they spent a lot of money investing in stuff. They're going to have to spend a good amount of money in AI to keep up, but they're not as dependent on it as Apple, Google, Microsoft. I read a good article today about Apple is sort of like, you know, they're pursuing AI, they're just doing it quietly and they don't feel like they're in a hurry, just like they're never in a hurry. You know, like even when phones first started coming out, they didn't make the first phone, but they made the best phone. And that's kind of their philosophy. It's like, well, we don't need to be the first one to market. We're going to come out with something that's so good that you're going to go, oh, thank you, Apple. But the way I look at the way I look at Amazon is they're increasing their top line is increasing nicely. They can work on the bottom line. As they've proven, they can work on the bottom line once they decide they want to take a pause and let this thing go. There's a lot of money. But the question is, what's their revenue coming out of? So dare we ask, looking at Amazon, where does their revenue come from? How does it break down by segments? Also, profits. I'd like that data too. And see what he comes up with. That's not what I want to hear. Oh, interesting. So they have North America International AWS. That's what I care about, though. How much is AWS? So AWS is, this is what's interesting about it, right? They're 21 billion of the, and again, we don't know this is true. So we still have to go check. But what does Business Quant say? Amazon's revenue by segment. How nice. Oh, come on. Boo. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, no, can't download the data. Bastard. All right, anyway, so Amazon Web Services, that's for a quarter, though, don't forget. So $20 billion of profit and $80 billion of sales, just multiplying by 4. So here's the thing, though. It's only 7.5% of the profit, but it's all, 7.5% of the sales, but Amazon Web Services, all of the profit. And this is what always bothers me about Amazon, is that means that they are losing money on the rest. You know, like one way or another, they're not making any other money because they're only showing $14 billion. I mean, well, I guess last year they were making some other money because here's 33. So they were making 20 out of 33 was coming from web services. So the rest of their divisions are very, very dragging. And the question is, where is the growth coming from? That's what you want to find out with Amazon. Like, where is this? You know, so when they were moving their profits from 380, 460, huge jumps, 80,000, right? So it's like 20%. Then 460 to 513 is 50 something. That's 10%. 550, another 10%. 620, another 10%. Let's call it. So they're slowing down on their growth. But the question is, what's growing? Because it doesn't matter if they grow sales. That's not profitable for them. That's not a very profitable part of their business. It matters if they grow web services. So if web services slows down, it's a much bigger deal than if sales slow down. So the question is, what is slowing down? And then you want to drill into that. But this is how you can use the AIs for research, is you try to start finding it out. We're going to have to find out if this is true or not, but at least it gives us a thing where we say, look, you know, what am I looking at? Well, I'm looking at the fact that $20 billion out of 126, 146, so 20 out of 146 in sales is generating half the profits. That's when you realize, like, so in other words, whatever it is, 15, 12%, something like that. So 12% of the sales is generating half of the profits for the company. And now that then leads us to go back to the conference call and say, hey, okay, so then I can say, look, what are they saying in this conference call? What segments are growing? What's their projected revenue, so on and so forth. I may or may not get a good information, but at least it's saving me probably a bunch of times checking Google, or it gives me some starting jumping off points. So, and here, but again, here's the problem, okay? So for me, it's just giving me a place to start looking. But for many, many other people that I'm seeing online constantly now, it's the end. They're done. They take this information and they write an article about it, or they tell the thing to write an article about it. In other words, please write an article about the importance of AWS to Amazon's overall profits. He puts in a little, that's cute. Amazon's cloud service stores, Amazon's most successful profitable segments of the business accounted for 13%. See, I nailed it. And more than half, yeah, that's what I just said. See, I could be an AI. AWS was launching since then. AWS has grown rapidly and become the most dominant player in the cloud with market share of more than 30%. Okay, this is good. He starts doing this. It's weird. He kind of like freaks out about the structure falls apart. I've seen that a lot. So anyway, so this is exactly what I said from looking at the same data. I mean, exactly what I said. That's freaky. AWS was launched in 2006 as a way for Amazon to leverage. This is nice background, so it might not have occurred to me to do a little background. I don't do that, by the way. I do notice that about myself. And that's kind of one of the good things when you start working with these things. I realize this about myself. I'm like, you know what? I don't really do that reporter kind of like background bits. I always assume that my reader base, in my mind, I'm having like one continual 20-year conversation with all you guys. So to me, it's like I just assume everybody knows everything I said for the last 20 years. And I don't tend to backtrack or fill in history. And I guess that's bad, but on the other hand, I don't want to bore everybody, so it's hard to say. AWS was launched in 2006 as a way for Amazon to leverage its own infrastructure and expertise, offer cloud services. Since then, growing rapidly, dominant player, more than 30%. Okay, big problem. When you're more than 30%, you're not going to grow that much. So Amazon, if they keep growing their top line and don't grow that AWS, their profits are going to go down as a percentage of sales. And even if you're growing and your profits are falling as a percentage of sales, that's not good. They have much higher margins. According to industry estimates, they have an operating margin of 28%. Amazon North America segment has an operating margin of 4%. Oh, yeah, I've said this before. Amazon's North America segment has a margin of 4%. International they're losing money. International minus 5%. AWS generates more profit. This is exactly what I said. Yeah, I know that. AWS has strong growth potential as more core businesses and consumers adopt cloud services, according to Gartner. Maybe because I know all this stuff, it makes this more useful to me than it would to most people. But it's so nice. I mean, it's just to be able to just see that and focus my attention and say, oh yeah, okay, I know that, and I forgot I didn't mention this. I should have talked about this in more depth. AWS strong growth potential. As more businesses adopt cloud, and of course that's true now with AI. As I said, there's going to be a complete flood of new data, and it's going to overwhelm all the servers, all the clouds, all the storage. So yeah, maybe AWS has a 30% market share, but maybe you can argue they will benefit the most because there will be a doubling over the next 2 years. There will be a doubling of the amount of data that needs to be stored in the cloud. Therefore, maybe it's better for AWS because they already, that 30% can stay 30%, but it'll double the amount of actual revenue. So the 20 billion here will go to 40 billion. It won't matter what retail does. It's not important. The global cloud market expected to grow by 23% in 2021. That's very old data, and reach 332 billion. Amazon is well positioned to capture a large share of this, of course. It provides a competitive advantage for the e-commerce by enabling faster delivery, lower cost, and better experience. For example, Prime Video streaming services help attract and retain Prime members who are on Amazon.com. And it supports their logistics network, which allows it to offer faster shipping and so on and so forth. In conclusion, here's where it starts falling apart. It's like it, you know, this has only happened since they started letting you have 10 responses. See, it's 3 of 10. It seems to have overloaded it somehow. In conclusion, AWS is a vital part of Amazon's overall profits as it generates high margins, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how I can do research now much, much faster. It's like really cool though. It's like, it's a great way to do research. It's a great way to get me focused on something that I might have missed, or if I didn't miss anything, great. It says all the stuff I know. Like to these paragraphs, I told you just before I wrote it. It's just, it really is. It definitely makes me more productive though. I mean, this is, you know, being able to do that, and also pointing out what I missed, where I say, oh, this history is kind of useful, let's include it in the article. You know, that's huge. You know, and I can ask it to like check my work before I put it in. I won't have as many spelling errors, hopefully, because I don't, you know, you know what happens? I'm writing for like a couple of hours before 9:30. Like I'm you know, usually read for a couple of hours. I usually wake up about 4:30, either 4:30 or 5:30. I read for like about 2 hours. Then I start writing. After I'm done reading, I start writing, and then the bell rings, and then it's time to answer questions. So I tend not to go back and make sure everything is perfect. I tend to hit publish and then go, and then I hit publish and have breakfast, and then I go sit down with everybody. So this will now check my work for me, and it's fun for me to like feed the thing my article and say, what do you think? You know, what could I do better? What didn't I say? It's kind of cool. And that then lets me write faster or write more because I have less to check, because I have a little assistant who's going to check things for me. So, you know, again, it's productivity, but it's going to depend on how fast people really adapt to it. And they talk about, oh, 100 million users. I think they're almost up to 200 million users on ChatGPT now. But that's not much. There's 4 billion people using the web, and there's 200 million people using ChatGPT at the moment. That's not a huge penetration so far. And over the course of the year, maybe it'll get to 1 billion, but those people aren't going to be experts. They're going to be a lot of people casually using, so on and so forth. Another year, and all of a sudden, though, real experts. Like my youngest daughter, Jackie, is in love with this technology, and she's using it for everything. And she just says this is the most productive thing she's ever seen. And, you know, she's a junior at school. And she just says, this is absolutely the future. And I said to her, I said, you know, don't be, most people using this stuff won't tell you that they're using it. And I've debated the concept too. I'm like, well, you know, it's no different than me using Google, really. It's like I use Google all the time. I read other people's articles all the time and write down what they wrote. That's normal. You know, that's what's, you know, you read other people's stuff, you think about it in a different term, you put out a summary or whatever. That's what you do. Now, using an AI to do it seems like basically cheating, and it's kind of cheating, but it's a tool. But most people, especially writers, will not, you know, will not at all tell you that they're using this thing. But I can tell from the patterns when they are, and it's a lot of them, probably most of the people on blogger sites. That didn't take very long too, but that's a good target audience, right? It makes your life easier, it makes it faster. The problem is though that the quality slips, and that's what we all have to watch out for. And it's very dangerous when you have misinformation, when you have things that say Phil Davis says Goldman Sachs, blah, blah, blah. It said no such thing. Your session expired, bastards. Log in. Oh, come on. So we shall see. So what else? Okay, so there are other companies. So here's other ways to use it. Let's not go with that. Oracle, VMware, Cisco. Okay, so let's see Cisco. How will PSCO benefit from the rise of AI? How are they positioned to take advantage, if at all? All right, so Cisco's technology company designs and manufactures sells networking. Artificial intelligence continues to advance, has potential to create new opportunities. Here are a few ways Cisco may benefit. AI automation. Cisco is well positioned to take advantage of the growing trend towards AI-powered networks. They already offer several network solutions, including DNA Center, which leverages AI to automate network management and provide real-time insights. As AI continues to advance, Cisco can further integrate into the network's Internet of Things. IoT is expected to grow rapidly. AI will play a crucial role in making these devices smarter and more efficient as a leading provider of networking equipment and software. And that's true. You know, you realize like well, this is where Broadcom and Qualcomm also live. So now your Roomba can use AI, but it won't obviously have, there's no point in putting a $3,000 NVIDIA chip in the Roomba, right? But what you have is you have a high quality, like a modem, you know, a Bluetooth for the house. So it's going to have a Bluetooth chip or a Wi-Fi chip, and that's going to be able to talk to the AI at Roomba.com, right? And it will be able to tell the Roomba exactly what it should do when it encounters a certain type of obstacle. So in other words, the Roomba will have its basic information at home in there, but then when the Roomba encounters a problem, instead of freaking out, it will then contact its buddy, the AI at Roomba headquarters, and the Roomba headquarters will analyze its data from the house and then analyze the sensor readings it is getting from the Roomba and then tell the Roomba how to adapt and adjust. And it'll do the same thing in your washing machine and in your oven and in your refrigerator and all over the place. It's going to be happening, and eventually in your robot, in your household robot, will not have to now be it will now be an AI, but it won't have to be an AI locally connected. As long as it has Wi-Fi, your household robot will be able to deal with all kinds of stuff hooking up to the main AIs. So this is, you know, and this is the kind of stuff that Cisco plays a big part in this sort of thing. So Kinetic powers AI analytics, blah, blah, blah. Security, AI can help organizations detect and monitor more effectively. AI provider of network security solutions, firewalls. Cisco can integrate AI. And there's going to be, you know, wars, robot hackers versus robot defenders and things like that. Cisco is well positioned to take advantage of the rise of AI. The company already offers solutions, and Cisco can further integrate it. Okay. Oh. So now let's ask Mr. Bing the same question. What are we up to? 3. Okay, no problem. We can start there. Okay. Oh my God, why is it doing that? Cisco can benefit from, okay, Cisco can use AI to enhance its own products and services, such as DNA Center, same mention. AI provides operational provision, supply chain management, collaborations, officer CIO, chief supply chain officer Cisco. To build a networked ecosystem for suppliers and customers and partners, Cisco can use AI to create new opportunities in markets, such as commercial satellite, which require new acquisitions. I think it's just making shit up though. Cisco is see, I always trust ChatGPT much more than I trust Bing. Cisco's vision to take advantage of AI by investing and researching in technology, according to its annual report. See, this I like though. It's actually able to find stuff. Cisco spent $6.3 billion on R&D expenses, which included investments in areas such as cloud computing, partnering with companies and our leaders in innovation. Cisco partnered with Google Cloud on integrated blah, 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 providing training. Okay, so I'm gonna say, Bing says, what are your comments? See, I play them off against each other. Okay, can help Cisco by the forefront, blah, blah, blah. By investing heavily in R&D, Cisco continue to develop its own AI. It can help the company stay competitive. Additionally, partnering with other companies and organizations, providing training and resources for developing is also a strategy by making it easier for Cisco's platform, blah, 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 which can provide valuable feedback. Overall, I think the strategy position, I can, okay. Are you able to fact check what Bing said about Cisco? Don't have access to real time and the ability to fact check information. However, this does that. I can refer, in this case, the information being provided, Cisco's, such as investing in R&D, partnering with other companies, and providing training and resources for developers are generally accurate and consistent with publicly available information about Cisco. However, I cannot guarantee the accuracy of any specific details or figures cited by Bing without further verification. Okay. So again, all has to be checked out by you. There's no shortcuts to it, but it's nice to see a couple of key points. It's nice to have a few things to go by. And then, wow, whatever happened to my history? Don't tell me I lost my donut recipes. I'm gonna be pissed off. Oh no, my donut shop just went up in smoke. All right, anyway. So we were looking at companies, and here we're talking about cloud infrastructures, right? So that's where Cisco would come up. Oh, and speaking of Cisco, I do love Cisco. It's weird that we don't own them because we almost always own Cisco. So why don't I own Cisco? Only $200 billion, 12.5 PE. Must have a lot of debt. Nope, cash. Is this 2022 or is this that's TTM? So here's 2022. So they've got 9.5 billion, 9.7 billion credit net of debt. I don't know why we don't own Cisco. It seems like a bad idea, right? So we should totally own Cisco. Are there any reasons not to own Cisco stock? Am I missing something, right? That's where this is useful. It could all be bullshit, but at least it's going to tell me what I should look up. Okay. I'm not going to not buy it just because it's cheap. That doesn't make any sense. Now, is it 56.94? It's not at all 56.94. That's annoying. Where are you getting that from? Yeah, right there. It says 48.99 right there. Oh, below its high. I'm sorry, I didn't read it right. It's trading below its high of 56.94. It may have lost some momentum and attractiveness. Cisco stock may face competition from other networking companies investing in emerging technologies, 5G and Edge. For example, Cisco's rival Juniper Network recently announced a partnership with Google Cloud to offer cloud native services for enterprises and service providers. Cisco stock may be affected by macroeconomic factors such as trade tensions, currency fluctuations. That could always happen, blah, blah, blah. Cisco reported a decline in revenue and earnings for its fiscal 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. 2020, and of course, these are not the only factors. Okay. Can you check CSCO's Q4 2022 earnings call and let me know what the key takeaways were. Now, again, you don't know which is true or which isn't true, but at least we have some idea. 13 billion, up 8%. Guidance was then the top end of their guidance. Cisco reported non-GAAP earnings of 84, up 4% from last year, above its range again. Cisco reported strong growth across all geographic regions, driven by demand. Cisco announced quarterly dividend, which is normal. Cisco provided guidance for its first quarter, 2023, expecting growth 7.5 to 9.5%. You know, look, when you're trading at 12.5 times the earnings and you've got $9 billion in the bank, even though they're a $200 billion company, it's still like 5% of your money, 5% of your market cap's in the bank. And they're only trading at 12 times earnings. I don't see why would you not own this? So clearly we should be adding that to the long-term portfolio. I don't see any reason not to own Cisco. It's like an oversight that we don't have it right now. So definitely for the long-term portfolio, we want to be in this stock. So now we go to look up whether or not there's a good trade in it. And of course it's going to be. So Cisco at 50 bucks. I'm certainly not going to buy the stock because the actual dividend with Yahoo CSCO, I think it's probably 3%. Yep. Man, you don't need a Bing, you got me. Where were we? Oh yeah. That's cool. See, I amaze myself sometimes. So 50 bucks is so what I do is when I'm looking for what option to do, I'm always looking at, like, as a rule of thumb, I'm generally willing to spend $2.50 to roll down $5, right? That's what we always do when we have positions. So in other words, so when I'm taking a position, I'm going to want to roll down $2.50 if it's for $5. So here's the question: starting at 50, that's not 50, that's 50. So 50 is 670, and this is 940, let's say. So that's so what is this costing me? 670, 940 is like 270, right? Then 940 to 1260 is 320, right? 940 to 1260 is 320. So this is 320. It's too much money. So the 45. Okay, so we look at the 45, and then it's similar thing here. It's like 45. Well, what do we think the target should be on Cisco? The target. Dun, dun, dun. So this is 12.5. It should certainly be trading at 15 times earnings, right? Easily. So let's say that we certainly believe it should be at 15 times earnings. That is going to be 20% higher than it is now. So $60 is our target. All right, so this is where I get this stuff from. So we decided that the $45 calls are going to be reasonable. I'm not going to spend the extra money to be in the 40 calls. So we're going to take the 45 and 60 spread. The 60s are 290. All right, so that's going to be 940. All right, so it's going to be 940 minus 290 is 650. All right, then I look at the put side and I say, well, I certainly don't think it's going to go 10% lower than it is now. That seems just crazy. So it's at $48. I don't think it's going to go below 45. Therefore, I could sell the 45 puts, but I don't really have to sell the 45 puts. I can sell the $50 puts because the $50 puts are more than $5. And that's going to be net 45 anyway. So I think that I'm comfortable enough where for the extra, what's this, 390, and this is 590. So for the extra $2, I don't think it's that risky to sell the $50 puts. And what we can do is say these are let's say 585. So if we sell half as many of these as we buy of these, we're going to knock off 290, let's say. All right, so 650 minus 290 is 360. So now we're picking up the 45 $60 spreads for 360 net, and it's a $15 spread. So that means the upside potential is going to be 1140, right? So 1140 divided by 360 is 316% upside potential. All right, and that's how we decide on a spread. So looking at Cisco, I'm comfortable with the short 50 calls because I don't need the 45 calls because the 50 calls are $6. And we don't mind owning Cisco long term. It's not a threat. You know, it's like don't throw me in that briar patch. You know, if anybody actually does, maybe I'm too old. Who knows? Anyway, so but the point is that it's not a big enough threat for us to avoid it. I'd rather have the $2 than be worried that I'm going to be assigned Cisco at $50. I don't keep assigning Cisco at $50. That's not a big deal. I'd rather have the $2 now towards my trade to take $1 off of each of my longs. So we're going to sell the 50 calls, and we're at 50. Don't forget, it's not like we're not at 50. We're at 49. So we're going to sell the $50 calls because we think Cisco is definitely too low right now. Our target is 60. And we sell the $50 calls. We buy twice as many of the 45-60 spread. And why? Because here's the simple fact. I won't pay $3 more to go to the 40s. I will roll to the 40s down the line if for some reason Cisco does drop and I have the opportunity to roll for less than 250, I'll happily pay the other 250 to be lower. But I'm not going to pay $3 to do the roll now. There's no need because my target is 60. Only if I'm wrong and only if I have to lower my target would I worry about such things. And here's the trick. If Cisco drops, let's say $10 to what is it now, 49? So if it drops to 39, and I have to spend 250 to roll this down to from the 40s to the 35s, right? I'm sorry, from the 45s to the 40s. If I spend 250 to roll from the 45s to the 40s, now Cisco's at 40. I'm at 40. I have a 40-60 spread. That's a nice wide spread. That means I can then sell some short-term calls. So then let's say I want to sell don't forget, we'd be at 40, and that means that $10 lower. So that means that the 4750 calls would be priced like the 5750 calls. Well, that's not good. They probably couldn't sell those. So the 45 calls would be priced like the 55 calls, which is 50 cents. That's not particularly good. Well, it might have to go tighter. But anyway, hopefully we can sell a short call for $1 at least. And if we can sell a short call for $1 against the 40-60 spread that we have long, that means that the money that we spend on the roll, which was $250, will be made up very quickly. So that's why, so I'm getting comfortable with the spread. I'm comfortable with what happens if it drops 20%. And that's the thing. If you have a good plan for what you're going to do with the spread after it drops 20%, that's a good start, right? So we're totally putting this in the LTP. This is a good trade. All right. So officially, when I get back to chat, we will talk about doing that because I do like what we've got here. Unfortunately, all this stuff from Bing, this is what's annoying about it. Everything here in Bing is not going to transfer to my other chat. Oh wait, my donut recipes. Oh, what happened? My donut recipes were here. They weren't in Bing, but they're gone. There's nothing here. Don't worry, your conversation data is preserved. Check back soon. Oh, I guess they're working on that. Thank you guys. See, I love chat. I like ChatGPT so much better than Bing. They're like, oh, don't worry, we didn't lose your chat. My donuts. I freaking love this stuff. So anyway, that's basically it. You can see what we're doing. I'm analyzing this stuff. I'm using the AI to help me, but not to replace me because I'm still better than the AI. Although honestly, though, that was weird that basically word for word, he said the same thing I said. So it's getting close. I certainly have to be worried. I tend not to spout off and start talking about completely fake stuff. That's the one big edge I have right now is I know what reality is, and you know, and I'm getting older, so I'm probably going the other way. So so the AIs are going to get less likely to go off on tangents, and I'm going to get more likely to go off on tangents as the years pass. So you guys, there's going to be a what do they call it? Oh, see, I can't. I'm already in singularity. Aha! I got it without looking. It's going to be a singularity at which the AI surpasses me, and it's all downhill for me from there. But let's hope that point is not like tomorrow, because I'd like to play this out a little longer. But I'm having a ball. I mean, I got to tell you, this is so much fun, and it's so freaking interesting. And every day I learn something new, and I haven't learned new stuff in so long. I mean, I just love learning things. I do. And this is a fantastic way to do your research. It's a fantastic way to work on stuff. It's a great way to just flesh out new ideas and come up with things to improve yourself. Oh, here you go. If you were the CEO of Cisco, what new products would you be working on to increase the company's sales? Look at this. He always has to, he's got to get some more ego, though. I do not have personal opinions or desires, but I can suggest some potential new products. Cloud-based networking. With the growth of cloud computing, is an opportunity for Cisco to develop cloud-based networking solutions that are fully integrated with leading cloud platforms. This could help organizations simplify and automate their networking infrastructure while leveraging scale. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a growing concern. IoT. These are not really blah, blah, blah. It's collaboration. Okay. Those are good, but think outside the box. 3 things Cisco is not doing, but could, within their skill set, that could generate major new revenue streams. Okay. Smart city solutions. As cities become more connected and technology driven, there's an opportunity for Cisco to develop smart city solutions that can help cities optimize their infrastructure, improve public safety, and enhance the overall quality of life for citizens. It can include solutions for smart transportation, energy management, safety, and more. Augmented reality solutions. With the rise of AR, there's an opportunity for Cisco to develop AR solutions that can help organizations enhance training, maintenance, blah, blah, blah. Blockchain solutions, blockchain technology has potential. So there's 3 ideas, and if you're in Cisco, you would know whether you're exploring any of them or not. But please give me a template. Give me a proposal for implementing smart city solutions as Cisco's next big thing. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible stuff. Here's a high-level proposal for Cisco to implement smart city. Define smart city strategy. The first step is define the smart city strategy, including target markets, use cases, various things. Cisco should conduct market research and analysis to identify the most promising opportunities. Build the smart city ecosystem, smart city solutions, blah, blah, blah. Develop smart city solutions. They should leverage expertise in networking, cloud, and blah, blah, blah. This can include solutions for smart transportation. Deploy smart city solutions. Once the smart city solutions have been developed, Cisco should deploy them in partnership and government, blah, blah, blah. Monitor and optimize. Cisco should monitor and optimize smart city to ensure that overall implementation should be a significant opportunity for Cisco to diversify its revenue streams, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if you work for Cisco and you propose that, you get a raise. This is what I mean by productivity. It doesn't, this is the thing, Cisco's got, I don't know, how many employees does Cisco have? Now I could have looked this up in Yahoo, but there you go, 82,900. And when you're going to be able to talk to it, it's going to be even easier, right? So any thought you have in your head, and again, you can't trust the facts and figures. You don't know whether or not it's pulling accurate data, but these things will get better over time. But you see how this is. It's like usually I would have gone to Yahoo. In fact, here is what I would have done. I would have gone to Yahoo and I would have gone to profile. Doesn't take long. 83,000. That's right. So this is, so Bing was right. I mean, ChatGPT was right. But you know, this is just incredible stuff. This isn't crazy. This is very logical things. All these are very logical things for Cisco to do. It'd be sad if they're not doing them because these are pretty obvious. But you know, and again, if those are obvious, you could just say to it, we're doing this and we're doing that. How about something else? Just like donut flavors, right? It doesn't, see, that's the thing. It doesn't care. It's all the same. It doesn't care if you're talking about a new idea for a TV show or a new way to wire a house with less, you know, to use less copper wiring and things like that. Or if you're looking for a more efficient lighting system, if you're looking for a better way to align solar panels, anything you want to ask it, it's going to tell you, and it's going to think of it in ways that you may not have thought of it before. It's not constrained by human ways of thinking. You know, when you say, what can Cisco do? You may think of a product. This thing is saying, no, 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 forget product. Let's say we take what Cisco does and apply it on a citywide basis. And instead of going around selling to companies within a city, we're going to sell to the whole city, these multi-billion-dollar projects. And damn if that isn't a pretty good idea for Cisco. It's also an exercise that I do to think about what a company can do and what they should be promoting and whether or not that company. So in other words, I look at a company and I say, hey, like, let's take Yeti, right? Okay. How about Yeti? What can and should they be doing to sell more product and increase their revenues? So I like Yeti. I want to know what does he think they can do? An error occurred. Dun, 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 dun. So now I'm not going to say how about Yeti. What can and should Yeti be doing? While Yeti has a strong reputation for their coolers and drinkware, they could expand their product line to appeal to a broader customer base, for example. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't know what's happened since September of 2021. Target, so they've already done this. Target new markets. Yeti could explore opportunities and expand their customer base beyond outdoor recreation. They could target customers who value high quality, durable products. Expand their e-commerce presence. Yeti can increase their online sales by improving the website's blah blah blahs. Collaborate with influencer brands. I mean, these are good, solid suggestions. And it doesn't take a marketing team 3 weeks to get back to you and charge you $10,000 for the research. It's like, here you go, boom. This is how you make companies productive. This is how you make all sorts of companies productive. It is just like putting computers in people's hands for the first time. It's like everybody's going to be able to start doing this. Everybody's going to start, once they let go of their ego and realize like you can ask a computer something and you can have a computer find stuff out for you or do your job, you just got to let it. Like I said, most writers you talk to, Seeking Alpha freaked out. I tried to give them an article. I analyzed sun power, using, and I it was in the chat, it was in our chat room. I analyzed sun power using the AIs, and I clearly indicated when the AI was talking, when I was talking, and I showed how it did it, and half the article was written by me and half the article was written by the AIs. And I was basically demonstrating this is how you can analyze a stock using these AIs. Well, Seeking Alpha freaked out. Under no circumstances whatsoever are we allowing AI articles, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's just such nonsense because everybo's using the AI now. How can you possibly read their stuff and think that these are human written articles? It's just, and the guy even said, the editor even said, thank you for your honesty at least, in pointing out that you're using the AI. And I'm like, the point of the article is to teach people how to do research using AI. What, are you going to never talk about it and pretend it doesn't exist until your whole company is bankrupt? It's crazy. The Hollywood people, they don't want scripts written by AIs. And I understand the problem. There's a science fiction magazine that used to accept articles, and all of a sudden they get, and this is how fast it's happening. They went from getting a couple of hundred articles a month to 3,000 articles were submitted. Science fiction stories were submitted. Why? Because all you have to do is say, write a science fiction story about a Wookiee and a what's something else? Oh, a Wookiee and Thor who meet at Club Med and and get involved in solving a murder that takes them to Mars. Do it in the style of, who wrote those old detective Philip Marlowe? No, that's not the author. Do it in the style of an old Sam Spade story. Okay, so it's not great, but this is the problem. Look how easy that is. I just have to have some half-assed idea, and it starts writing a freaking story. So they sat at the bar sipping their drinks. They overheard a conversation between two shady characters in the corner. They were talking about a murder that had taken place on Mars and how they'd been hired to investigate it. The Wookiee and Thor exchanged them and look. They were both adventurers at heart, and they couldn't resist a good mystery. They approached the two men and offered to help with the investigation. After a long flight, they arrived on Mars and were immediately plunged in the seedy underworld of the planet's largest city. I mean, come on, this is not terrible. They met with the local authorities and began their investigation. As they delved deeper into the case, they encountered a cast of characters out of the Pulp Fiction novel. There was a femme fatale, a girl, seeing them like, all right, so then you go, tell me more about the characters. Give them names and bios. The Wookiee. Look at this bullshit. Kethanar. Kethanar was born on the forest planet of what the. He lived on his Wookiee tribe. He became a skilled warrior. Da da da. Thor named Ragnar. What? He's Thor. Ragnar is a member of the Asgardian royal family known as the Strength. Maybe his name is Ragnar. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if it's true or not. He is well known, versed in Norse mythology, deep respect. Together, they make a formidable team. Okay, how about the characters they meet? Really, I mean, you literally, when you're writing, you end up spending a day thinking about shit like this, trying to come up with ideas. And not that this is better than what you would come up with, but just the fact that it's something that gets you moving forward in your process. It's so goddamn helpful to be able to do this. But lazy people are just taking this exact shit and going, boom, here you go, here's your story. Look at it. Ava is a strikingly beautiful woman with a shady past. She'd been in trouble with the law before. Flirtatious charm is alluring and dangerous. Ava is smart and cunning with a hidden agenda that keeps close to her chest. All right. Can you write a scene for Ava interacting? Okay, with Ava and how she comes to meet Thor and the Wookiee. Ava sauntered into the dimly lit bar, her hips swaying to the beat of the music. She scanned the room looking for her mark. She had heard rumors of a couple of adventurers who had just arrived on. See, he keeps the thread of the story. He knows what he's talking about. It's not like he's just making shit up. He's like keeping it inside the realm of what we're discussing. As she made her way to the bar, she caught sight of two figures. One was a massive furry creature. She approached him. Mind if I join you? Then he still sees, keeping track of the name. The Wookiee sized her up. He remained silent, but his eyes followed movement. Ava took a seat next to blah, blah, blah. I couldn't notice you two handle yourselves. He grunted. He's not one for small talk. Thor spoke up. What's your angle, miss? Doesn't sound like something Thor would say. Everyone speaks Wookiee, apparently. He shrugged his massive shoulders. Why not? It couldn't hurt to have an extra set of eyes, blah, blah, blah. I mean, come on. This is a problem, right? It's not great, but it also doesn't suck. And so this magazine is got deluged with submissions because that's how much effort I have to put into writing a whole freaking short story about a Wookiee and Thor going to a place and going to try to solve a murder on Mars. I could get picked up for a goddamn, Disney Plus TV show. In fact, watch. Write this as a script for Disney/Marvel. Make sure the dialogue is true to form. Sure, here's the script. Fade in. Exterior, Club Med, night, pulsing beat. This is the future. It's crazy. So whatever it's saying, I mean, it doesn't matter. But the point is, holy crap, right? The dislocation that this is going to cause in society. On the one hand, you won't be able to be mediocre anymore because mediocre is here. The mediocre is free. So if you want to be an author, you're going to have to really step up your game because this stuff can be pumped out by a machine. Senator Warren, who the hell is he? Wow. He runs out of that's his limit. That's the problem. You have to learn how to prompt him and keep him in focus and do whatever. But I know how to do that. I'm very good at talking to him. But look at this shit. Pages of script. How many pages is the average script for a 1 hour crime drama? $50 to 60 pages. How much do studios pay for writers of these shows? Here you go. 30 to 50,000 per episode. Wow, we could knock this thing out in like overnight. A more experienced writer or showrunner, 100,000 per episode. Wow, I can start at 30 and work my way up. What am I doing here? What are you? Why am I talking to you guys? I could be writing Wookiee crime dramas. Anyway, so key takeaway from this. We have lots and lots of ideas for AI investing. We got to get a little bit more confident that the market's not going to crash, but Cisco's a no-brainer. As you can see, we're just sort of chugging along nowhere right now. There's always going to be great things to buy. Every week, I'm going to try to find something at least that we can sink our teeth into. But again, these are my examples. This is why AI is going to change everything, and it's the time frame. It'll be a lot faster than the computer revolution, but it'll be slower than you think or slower than you want it to be. As with everything, right? As with 3D printing, as with solar energy, as with electric cars, it always seems like, well, what, self-driving cars, where are those, right? So everything seems like, oh my God, that makes sense, it's going to happen, but it takes time. I think electric cars were like 7% of all cars or something like that last year. I mean, that's a lot. That's from nothing to 7%. And by 2035, which is only 12 years away, it's going to be 100%. There will be no more sales of internal combustion engines in 2035, basically. Every government is phasing them out. So 7% now, 100% in 13 years. That means every single year it's got to go up by more than 5%, like 6-7% per year. So basically, we have to double the amount of electric cars as a percentage of all cars in the next year, and then at least 50% after that for the next year, and each year then has to gain about 20, then 25% more the next year. So in other words, the big gains will have to come now for us to get on track. So we're doing 7% now. Next year, 14% would be the goal. It's a tough goal to get to. Then after that, it would have to go to 21% in 2026, and then 25, and then 28%. So by 2030, we should be up around 35-40% of all cars should be electric cars. That's a rapid, major change. But it's still 6-7 years before it actually happens. So for us to do these things and get on track and make these changes, it's going to happen. But like I said, here's a tool though that's going to actually accelerate a lot of things. A lot of big changes are going to come along. The same way with computers, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know all these things would come about. We didn't know we were going to have word processing. We didn't know we'd have spreadsheets. We didn't know we'd have data analysis. We never knew, even then though, even with all those computers, we didn't know we'd connect them all up and make a network. IBM knew, but nobody else knew. That's why the reason IBM ignored Microsoft is they thought the whole PC thing was a fad, and that the only sensible model was going to be distributed computing, which is what we have now. That's what this is all about. The reason that you don't own software anymore, the reason that everything is on the web, is because IBM was right when they looked at Microsoft and said, no thanks. Because it was a silly PC operating system. They did not think it was important. And they were right, but they were wrong, because you can be right, but your time frame can be way off. IBM was right. DOS and PCs and having local operating systems was a silly idea, but it was a silly idea that ran the world for 20 years. 30 years, really. It's still pretty much there. I mean, we still have to boot up Windows to get online. But long-term, no. Long-term, IBM is right. The world will run on massive web services with quantum computing and so on and so forth. And all we need is a dumb terminal to hook up and ask it questions. So it's very interesting. The world's going to change, but the thing is, it goes with any investments, right? It's not just the investment. It's not just picking the quality stock. It's thinking about whose time has come. And what I see in the next year or two is going to be a massive data bloat caused by AI, and you can see what that example was about. Look how fast, look how easy I can write a story, look how fast I can build a business, look how fast I can set up a new campaign for an existing business. And it's just more and more data and more text and more articles, more and more scripts. Everything is going to be everywhere. And don't forget the artwork too. Don't forget that these things are cranking out art, that they're cranking out videos. Massive data storage. So data storage, huge beneficiary here. All the things that require you to manage your data, all the things that require you to transmit your data, like Cisco. I love those kind of companies. So we're going to be looking at a lot of those infrastructure companies. I think they're going to be the early beneficiaries that you can really bet on. Like at the time of autos when they first came out, right? You could say, oh, it's very obvious there will be no more horses and everybody's going to have a car. So what should I invest in? Should I invest in one of the 100 car companies that are out there telling you that they're going to change the world? Or should I invest in one of the 5 tire companies or one of the 8 gasoline companies that are out there? It's easier to invest in the gasoline companies. It's easy to invest in the tire companies, okay? It's not as sexy. It's not as sexy as figuring out Ford's going to win, but you don't know that. Just like with 3D printers, right? You don't know who's going to win. It turned out nobody won. They all can't make money. It's not ready yet. And we don't know how ready this is going to be, but we do know what's going to happen in the environment, right? You know that it's going to be more data, more transmission, more organization, more software as a service. These are going to be the winners. All right, so we'll talk more about it next week. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.